My name is Simran. I'm with Sister Song, and I host our podcast called F, Marry, Kill. I'm censoring today because we got some littles in the room. But I am so grateful to be here with the Louisiana Abortion Fund to do this collaborative joint podcast episode with their own podcast, The South Has the Answers. And I would love to hear a little bit more about y'all's show and kind of what you talk about.
So the idea of, should I introduce myself?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Tyler, Director of Grants and Development for the Louisiana Abortion Fund. I was born in Philly, but definitely have roots here. My introduces himself as a St. Aug grad almost immediately when you meet him, so authentic New Orleans vibes. I've been here since 2018 after my mom passed away, and credit this city for saving me, honestly, keeping me alive, keeping me afloat. So here till the rest of my days, I'm pretty sure. Fingers crossed. The Louisiana Abortion Fund, we have The South Has the Answers is our podcast. And that was really born out of the idea that a lot of the activism that we are going to need for the future historically has happened in the South. It historically has happened in ways that are unnoticed and underappreciated by like mainstream organizing culture, but it doesn't mean that that hasn't been going on for a long time here. So we really wanted to kind of like double on the answer, on the statement that the South has the answers and that the way we get free is by listening to Southern leadership and brilliance.
Do you have anything you want to add? Or, introduce yourself.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Tyler. Hi, y'all. My name's Diamond Cunningham. I'm the research coordinator at the Louisiana Abortion Fund. I'm so happy to be in space with y'all. I just want to take some time to shout out everyone, Simran, Tyler, everyone in the audience, our amazing interns and volunteers, our amazing folks who were able to make time tonight to attend. And I am originally born in South Florida to Jamaican immigrant parents. Keep Jamaica in your hearts and thoughts as we are recovering the worst storm we have ever experienced, Hurricane Melissa that struck on October 28th. And I am also a fifth-year PhD student at Tulane University. So I've been back and forth South Florida and New Orleans a lot, but New Orleans just has a special place in my heart. And I'm just so thrilled, honored, and really just in awe with the beautiful work that folks have been talking about tonight. So really excited to be here, and thank you, Simran, for hosting.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for having this conversation. And so the F, Marry, Kill podcast is really talking about how everything is reproductive justice. Like any topic that you can get into, you can look at through a reproductive justice lens, including things like environmental justice that impacts babies and pregnancies and families and communities, including things that maybe are not always seen as reproductive justice issues. And so many times our movements can be so splintered. Like it's like people don't want to touch the abortion thing. People don't want to touch the South. People don't want to touch these things are so necessary for us to come together and be part of. And so this podcast, the goal of it was A, to be silly, hence the name, but B, to be able to really bring together activists and folks who are involved in different movements and say, there is a space for all of us to look at this from a similar lens and through a common framework that actually has the power to hold all of us. So today we're going to be talking about the criminalization of reproductive health across the South, which is a very scary time that we are living in. And so I'm really grateful to both of you for shedding some light on kind of what's going on. So y'all both got a chance to introduce yourselves. Is there anything you want to share about the work that Louisiana Abortion Fund is doing right now?
Okay, I wanted to take a second to highlight our research study. We are currently doing a mixed methods research study, so that just means we're doing some qualitative interviews as well as a survey for folks who have traveled for abortion care post-ops. So folks who use our services traveled for abortion care out of state, so had to leave Louisiana, not necessarily Louisiana, because we do offer services for folks in the South, and we just want to hear their experiences. So we're able to connect with them on Zoom and have these interviews. We compensate them $100 e-gift card because we do know there is a lot of value in folks sharing their story, and we want them to know that there's a lot of value in that. We want to compensate them their worth, and it's just been the most powerful experience ever, just listening to folks who have connected with us maybe a couple months ago or a couple years ago and let us know, like, hey, like, this is what my experience was like, and this is what my experience at the clinic was like, or this is what LAF really, really helped us out on, or this is what I'd recommend LAF to do in the future. And I think that we were in a piloting phase where we were just like speaking with a couple folks before actually initiating the study. And even in like our, I think almost 20 interviews, I just like ended each one almost in tears, right? Because there is the disappointment in our infrastructure that this is what reality is for folks, but it's also so inspiring because every person is ending the call thanking LAF or saying, hey, because of this experience, I have done X, Y, and Z. Or people even asked, how can we get involved with the work that LAF does, which I think has been so tremendous. And last night we had a prep session at the warehouse where we were getting ready for the event, and we received some donated items for us to give to our community members, and one of the items was like a stomach heater for folks who after a procedure might need some additional comfort, and that was a recommendation that was given from one of our callers or one of our research participants. So to even know that we're able to implement these recommendations in real time and seeing it happen, I think has been so moving and so incredible, and it really just keeps us moving and alive in this very, very desolate time.
Yeah, so Diamond's work has always been impactful for me, to even bring on somebody who initially was in a presentation that I gave at Tulane and just was like, I'm super interested in what you do, how can I join? And now is leading a research study, just really, I think, speaks to how the South operates and like how communal we truly are, because it was somebody who's like, I care about the work that you're doing, and we as an organization were able to be like, and we care about you as a person, like want to bring you on. So always love hearing about the research study. Also, one of the largest funded grants from the Society for Family Planning. So, you know,
Clap it up, y'all.
love that for us. Also, I just think it's been mentioned a couple times, kind of like, you know, in a lighthearted way, because I know humor is one of the best medicines for like how things are going. But there is a real reality of criminalization and a real threat to the work that we are doing. Even thinking about recording things or having to live on this online world where we're always on like a Zoom meeting or we're always in a virtual space that you don't truly know what's happening, I think has been of top of mind for us as an abortion fund. I think we are unfortunately on the front line, both as an abortion fund, not both, this is gonna be more than two things, but as an abortion fund, as a Black-led organization, as Southerners, as people that are not like mega millionaires with lawyers, you know, at their beck and call. So we've really just been thinking about like, what does this mean for the people within our organization, but also what does it mean for our community? Because I think one of the unfortunate strong suits of the opposition movement is A, misinformation, but B, the threat of criminalization really does ruin lives, even if you aren't successfully brought to trial. Even the disruption momentarily of, what does this mean for my license? What does this mean for my livelihood? What is, you know, can I take off a couple of days to go to court to defend myself? All of those things have been top of mind because we also already talked to people who are like, I have this unexpected medical emergency that now I have to take a couple of days off and go, you know, get childcare and travel to a place I'm not familiar with and talk to these people who don't respect me because I'm from the South. So yeah, we've been really thinking a lot about how do we keep our people safe? What does it mean to proactively build the world that we are hoping to live in instead of always being in the reactionary phase and instead of always being like waiting for the other shoe to drop before we actually act. So I wish I had like the answers, but
I thought the South had the answers. That's why I heard.
We do. I can't share them though. I can't share them. But yeah, it's been something we've really been thinking about and trying to do a lot of community organizing and education, because I also think, as been mentioned, like you create the table and the people will come. You have so many brilliant minds in this room that hold a piece of that answer, that if we keep creating these spaces to have these conversations, like eventually enough of us will know what to do. So yeah.
Yeah, all of that really resonates with me, especially around like what you're talking about with those cyber attacks and with the balance of, in this moment, do we need to be as visible as possible so that our people can find us? Or do we need to be taking a step underground, taking a step back so that we don't put people in danger? And I know that like I've always been, like I'm Gen Z, I'm pretty active on the internet. Like my Instagram is very like full name, politics, thirst trap. Like it's like pretty, and so like my mom is yelling at me for my internet presence. And I never really had a problem with it. And then we had a really nasty cyber attack at Sister Song and just like in a Zoom call. And, it had never occurred to me that would happen to me, And I think what was so notable too was that these are people who hate abortion. These are people who hate the work that we're doing, but what they really hate is like what they're really down for is white supremacy. Like they came in and all they had to say was racial slurs. All they had to say was ways to put us down, specifically around race. And I think that's so notable that like I just would have, when I started in this work, I was like, oh, I'm doing abortion work. People are mad about this in politics. And then really seeing the ways that white supremacy threads its way into everything that we do was really scary. And all of a sudden I was like, maybe I don't want my full name on everything. So yeah, it's a really scary balance to try and figure out.
And I think that's the beauty also of reproductive justice and why as organizations, like we love Sister Song, we love all of the work that was shared earlier because we view it as true reproductive justice. What I appreciate about the organizing theory and like the intellectual framework is that it really does grapple with these larger questions. It's not just abortion, it's not just the moment of healthcare provision. It's really talking about what does it mean to live in a world where we are free from that? What does it mean to live in a world, and while we get there, also having a strategy for how to protect one another and how to like activate in order to prevent that kind of harm from driving people out of the movement and like away from the world building and away from what we're trying to get to. So I'm really grateful for the framework of reproductive justice. And I always want to like ground in the fact that the intellectual child of Black women is serious and it's like something to be taken seriously because it really does have the answers in the room, like you said, spaciousness for all of us.
Y'all, I was so locked in, I forgot to do the funny part. You're probably like, why are we called F, Marry, Kill? It's such a weird name for a podcast. It's because we start every episode by playing a game of F, Marry, Kill, but I forgot to do it. So y'all, I'm gonna give you a game of F, Marry, Kill. Have you played this game before? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Okay, great. I spent a lot of time trying to come up with this and kind of failed, but I'm gonna do it with my 3 favorite Mardi Gras parades, and then we're gonna do F, Marry, Kill with Muses, Zulu, and Crew of...
This is a political question. Oh my goodness. Oh man.
Easily marry Zulu. Ooh.
No, you're not. I'm sorry.
Oh, Tyler. Okay, then you tell me who you want to marry then.
No, my face is just. This is a podcast, so only the words count. My facial reactions don't count. Yeah, they don't count. Oops.
No, you go ahead, Tyler. Do yours.
No. I think the thing is, the longer you live in the city, the more people in each you like get to know, and so I'm like, married, like, but we don't need to unpack my personal history here on stage. That's okay. Yeah, we could. That's another podcast. Follow for more.
Okay.
No, yeah, keep going.
Okay, so marry Zulu. Kill. Oh, Tyler, you go.
We're moving to Utah and polygamy, so we're just gonna marry them all. It's
literally. Yeah. You rule.
We're going to Utah. We're bringing Mardi Gras with us.
Yes, we're bringing all the Black people, all the culture. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
To Utah.
Yeah. Turning up. Yeah. No.
Yeah, we're gonna marry them all.
Fine.
I know. I suck for that. I know.
Yeah.
Let's ask the audience. How about that?
Yeah.
Let's ask the audience. This is
Let's
too much
ask
pressure.
Moonlight.
Yeah.
Zulu.
Here. Muses and Crew de Vue.
Okay, fuck Crew de Vue.
Yeah. Like what? What?
That's because you're not from here. I mean, that's too much.
That was an easy one for me.
Right.
They want to kill.
Okay, well, you want to kill him? No. Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. Okay, we'll kill Crew de Vue and fuck music.
I feel like
All
that
right.
took too long. I'm
All
sorry
right, there we
about
go.
that. Yeah.
Fuck music.
Yep.
Kill Crew de Vue. My aunt will kill me if she heard me say
Fucking
that.
this is
Anyway, and then we're gonna marry Zulu.
That's what I
Wait,
said.
why you can't marry? Why you can't marry me? Oh, okay. Listen. Oh man.
Right.
Okay, never mind.
We're going to Vegas then, and we'll do a quick
let's
and
just marry-
dirty.
let's just marry
Just
Zulu.
get it over.
Let's just marry Zulu.
Yes.
Because I'm really just thinking about my aunt. My aunt joined Muses because she was like, I saw them as a child not give beads to black children. So I joined it so that she give big beads to all black children. She would, she handed to them. So that's why I'm like, oh,
But music still has its history.
yeah, I know.
Still can fuck over black people.
Right.
You
I know. That's what I'm saying.
did the right thing.
Exactly.
And
That's why I'm saying.
That's why I had to marry Zulu because a lot of my people were in Zulu. From
Exactly.
When they fucked up shit, I feel like I had buku aunties of people in Zulu. So I'm like, ooh, if I say any other one of them.
No. We gotta marry Zulu. All right. You got it? Okay. You marry Zulu. Fuck music.
At least we gonna
Kill.
Strong consensus in the room. Strong consensus. All right, I'm about to change the topic so 180'd right now, but how have you seen the political landscape in the South shift since Roe v. Wade was overturned and following the many subsequent bans that have popped up around the country? Vibe shift.
That is definitely a vibe shift, but it's an important vibe shift. I'll be fully transparent. I think immediately after Roe v. Wade, there was like an outpour of anger and like a collective anger for folks who weren't even engaged in like the reproductive justice movement. And I'd say us as LAF, we received a lot of support immediately after, maybe a couple months after that happened. But now, that's gone. You know what I mean? Financially, institutionally, people who can't even technically like attend some of our events and purchase a ticket because it's not in line with their like institutions, like whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I just feel like it's such a night and day for thinking about June 24th, 2022 to now. Yes, everyone was collectively super, super angry afterwards, and there was just a lot more attention and support, whereas now it's kind of like, oh yeah, that thing, I guess. Yeah. So I think that's my immediate reaction, which is really not only concerning, but also makes me have this like semi-existential crisis of like, oh, did y'all even really care? Was this like a clout chasing thing at the time, or like a super reactive thing to just be upset about collectively? And yeah, so that's my initial reaction.
Well, I think it really comes back to the fact that abortion bans only impact people who can't afford to go somewhere else and get an abortion. So it's like all the wealthy people, all the white people, all the people who don't have the barriers that our communities are facing can be outraged for a month and then stop being outraged because at the end of the day, they can get reproductive health care. And so it's like your outrage is based, you're like, oh no, it's my first crisis. No, it's not, you know?
I think I want to push back on the perception that you are safe from the realities, the implications of abortion bans because of wealth or because of geographic location. Just because I think people didn't realize that the overturning of Roe was going to fuck the system so deeply and so thoroughly. Like, you have a doctor in California that tried to, quote unquote, interfere with an abortion in the state of Louisiana and was charged. And now you have a medical provider who, may be scared to travel because, yes, you're safe in California, but as soon as you step into Texas, as soon as you take your kids to Disneyland, or land is Florida? World is Florida. As soon as you take your kids to Disney World, they're going to send you back. Or, they're going to send you to Louisiana to be tried because these states in the Gulf South are in cahoots with one another. We are like the evil, quintuplets that are in a battle to see how badly they can screw over their constituents. So I think that there's a perception that it's not going to touch you and that you're safe and that your blue state will protect you or your wealth will protect you, but there may be a limit. I don't know. There are very wealthy people in this
I appreciate
country,
that.
So, yeah, but I think that the biggest kind of shock to me, I don't know if shock is the right word, but it's just how far down the road of cruelty for cruelty's sake that the legislators are willing to go. That has been the most disheartening thing for me, to sit here in the only state in the country yet that has criminalization of mifepristone and misoprostol as Schedule 4 narcotics is like bad shit. Yeah, bad shit crazy. To the point, yes. So you have to the point that it is now stored in different places in the emergency room or in the operating room, so that when people need that life-saving medication, somebody has to run and go get it because it can't be stored where it once was. To have people now wrapped up in the war on drugs, because we already know who's going to be tested for drugs more frequently, who's going to be told that they may or may not have used a drug during their pregnancy, and now a medication that is used to treat a number of things is going to be wrapped up into it. Like, it's just, I don't know. There are no words to sufficiently describe how disgusting that is, how evil, how intentionally we don't care about specific humans. So I think that's been kind of exhausting, in addition to what Diamond was talking about, the fact that people's attention spans are short, but also the whole world is on fire. So it's super valid, the wildfires are happening in California, and now we need to donate to that. Whatever legislation, whatever current evil villain is running for a campaign, we have to donate against them. I get that there feels like there's a lot going on, but it always feels like the South is this well, those people voted for this, or those people are just living the results of their own stupidity, or whatever, pejorative insert here. So that's been disheartening. I literally was election night, because we all kind of saw the writing on the wall, was screenshotting people just being next time there's a hurricane in Florida, I'm not praying for them, or
I saw that.
I hope Florida breaks off and floats away. And, it's just, there's hate for us from all different sides while our legislators are actively trying to kill us. So that's been a lot to navigate.
How do we push back against that? Because I totally saw those posts about, I've seen about Florida, about Texas, about whatever. And I live in North Carolina, and so it's yes, but not the same way that the Deep South is getting that kind of heat. And what do you say when people say that?
Yeah. What do I say out loud, or what do I say in my head? But no. I think that unfortunately it's people you are just farther down in the queue of what we are going through. And so there's this perception that we are the bullshit is going to stop at the North Carolina line and that's it, but it's not. And people's wait times in medical facilities are being impacted by abortion bans. We heard a report about prescribers, medical professionals not wanting to prescribe certain medication to people who could potentially become pregnant because they don't trust them as reliable stewards of their own health care, and therefore if they prescribe a certain drug that has danger for a pregnant person and they live in a state where abortion is illegal or complicated, as a lot of these states in between are, they don't trust people to navigate what comes next. And so it's impacting things like Accutane. That has nothing to fucking do with abortion, But if your prescriber doesn't want to give you the proper medication because they're worried that you may later down the road, become pregnant. I feel like that's disrupting all sorts of medical stuff. That it's not just us in the South. It's not just us who don't want to have kids down here. It's not like the slut who doesn't want to, family. There's just a lot of like misconceptions, and so I don't know if I really push back against a certain there's a threshold to the stupidity that I engage with, and if it's like too far gone, God bless. Yeah. I keep it moving, Yeah.
Heard. Yeah. And God forbid a girl get on Accutane and try to be cute, okay? So, can y'all speak a little bit to what that threat of criminalization is looking like for patients as well as what it's looking like for healthcare providers? Because I know those are kind of two different beasts that we're working on here. And I'm always curious so I'm an abortion doula in North Carolina, and when North Carolina implemented its 12-week ban, there's so much fear, there's so much just general confusion about what the rules are, and that fear then transitions into how do we do this work. And I've had people, should be like, oh, I don't text about it. I never text about it. I only do Signal, or I only do phone calls. I only do this. And I think that there's been this hard line of okay, where do we make sure that we are being as safe as possible, as well as not scaring you when you're already in this really, really vulnerable point right now? So yeah, what are the implications in Louisiana or in the South more broadly?
Yeah, I can definitely speak on behalf of, there's so many, right? I know that when we were experiencing callers when the Real ID was implemented at the airports, where folks had to have a Real ID on them, that caused a plethora of issues with our fund. We have folks who've never been on a plane before traveling for the first time, or folks who are, we didn't even speak about immigration, right? We didn't speak on immigration, but what if you are undocumented and you need to travel? What happens next? And a Real ID is then needed. So I think personally, there's just this perpetual state of confusion. And okay, I have to check X peer-reviewed sources, and I'm going to touch base with Tyler, I'm going to touch base with Merritt, I'm going to touch base with 10 different people in the organization to make sure the information that we're giving to our callers or community members is 100% valid. And in this day and age where in this current administration, where things just change by the hour, it's scary. And we have done the work to be trusted community partners and allies within this space. So I do lightly. I want to make sure that when one of our community members calls and asks a question, I am giving them, or we are giving them, the most honest, the most fact-based response, period. And again, just with these constant changes, with us having an ICE presence in this city, there's so many considerations to think about. So I think my due diligence is just always making sure the information we're providing is creme de la creme, and also explaining the ramifications associated with, hey, if you do this, please think about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. You feel me? There's always a plethora of things to consider, and just letting folks make that informed decision and providing them with the resources to do that is my number one priority.
Yeah, I think there's a really real concern about criminalization. Once again, the type of people, maybe people don't know, but poor people, Black people, rural folks, formerly incarcerated folks are the first that are going to be increasingly surveilled and criminalized, and they also happen to be some of the populations that we serve most frequently. And so there's just an ever-present threat of criminalization. So I think there's a lot of technical, there's 1,000 different apps that claim that they won't sell your data, but that's right now before Facebook buys them, or Meta or Twitter, or whatever the hell. So it's just staying on top of what are the digital security measures we need to take? How do we keep our people as safe as humanly possible? I also just think it's about risk assessment, because the reality is this work is not welcomed in the current regional context we operate in, and it's not going to be welcome for a long time. Like, we would love to say that, you know, we can fight with all our might, and in the next election cycle, like, abortion access will be back, but that's just not the case. And so I think it's really getting clarity around, and this is for like medical providers as well, how far are you willing to go? What are you willing to risk? What does your threat of criminalization currently look like? How can you create an ecosystem of care where you're tapped in and connected to people whose threat may be lower so that they can leverage their privilege to help protect you? But I don't know. When I first started reading like Angela Davis, and I like would tell my mom, oh, all my favorite scholars like went to jail for a period of time. So like, just letting you know. And that was me in like, you know, middle school. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't, you know, bring that into fruition, because the injustice system is particularly brutal for Black women. But at the end of the day, you do have to know like, what are the potential outcomes, and are you willing to put yourself in a position to, you know, face them?
I really appreciate that perspective, because I think you're right that like in this world where like convenience and comfort are everything to us, like you have to be willing to sacrifice something in order for us to get free. And I like what you're saying about how everybody has a level of risk, but some of ours are higher or lower depending on our positionality and like being able to leverage those things. But you have to be willing to risk something. If we don't risk anything, we're not going to be able to make change. And the people who came before us, the organizers who came before us, were risking something.
Right. And also just getting clarity that like, it doesn't have to be your physical safety. Like, if you have kids at home, I'm not going to expect you to go to jail for anything. Like, go home to your babies. But you might lose your 501c3 status. Like, you might lose your, you know, shiny titles. People may be looking at you who value, you know, complacency and value like falling in line. They might start to not love you as much. That might be what you're willing to risk. But like, there is some level of, we can't be comfortable in order to get us to the new world.
Totally. Yeah. I'm curious, I know that we have some healthcare providers in the room. I'm curious if anyone wants to speak a little bit to the impact of criminalization in the providers' world. I'm literally looking at you, so.
So your question was, what level of criminalization do we as providers hold, I guess?
Yeah, and I noticed when you were talking about it earlier, like you gave a very thoughtful, so when you were talking about it earlier about like what you can talk about with abortion, like I'm sure you do have rules that you have to follow in order to stay in a certain way of speaking about things. I guess I'm just curious, what is the threat to healthcare providers when it comes to these bans?
So I'll say first, the threat is to scare the hell out of us to do nothing, right? To scare the hell out of us to be complacent, to not do our research, to not look and find lawyers who are reading these documents, because we are providers, we're not lawyers, right? And the way these laws are written up, they're written up in languages to confuse us, right? So partnering with organizations like the ones here and having people in your corner who are like, no, this is not what this says and this is what this says, is really helpful. The laws with MISO makes my job really hard in a way that I need a DEA. So a DEA is for me to prescribe controlled substances. And there are some providers who are not comfortable with having DEAs because it allows them to prescribe other things. And so they may say, I don't want that DEA, so I'm not gonna prescribe that medication, which is another barrier to care, right? And then there are other providers who were nervous to talk about abortion before and now really, really scared. And so I think it has to do with your level of rebel. To look into it, to do your own research, to find out more about it. And if it's something that's important to you, it takes an extra step. This is not something that's just gonna be off the bat, we're gonna do these things. And when it comes to legal things, it's knowing what line you can step on and what line you can't. And like I said before, as a prescriber, it is illegal for me to provide abortions to a viable pregnancy. Here in this state. but it's not illegal for me to assist in someone who's having a miscarriage or who's having complications from a pregnancy and guide them on ways that they can stay alive and or their pregnancy if that's what they desire, right? And so I think that line gets a little muddy and providers get scared of even counseling people on active miscarriages, right? And so I think that's where the scared part comes. And we don't want to talk about it. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
It absolutely did. Thank you. Anyone else wants to? Oh, my tiny friend got hand up first. Do you have something to add, or are you just raising your hand? Oh. No, sorry. I was talking to him, but you were welcome. Yeah. You're not my tiny friend. You're an adult.
Okay. Yes, no, I'm sorry. So I just had a question. So I work as a public health nurse, and a lot of times, sometimes when you're like that person, you know, that go-to person in your family, friends, or whatever. So a few years ago, right before abortion was outlawed, I had someone very close to me that had a pregnancy they wanted terminated, but it ended up being an ectopic pregnancy. Unfortunately, it ruptured, and they were treated, after the rupture. But prior to the rupture, they went to Planned Parenthood. I'm sorry, I think it must have been after abortion was outlawed, because they were able to get gift cards and things that they needed to get out of town. And while they were planning to travel out of town with the support they got, that's when the rupture happened. So let's say today there's a situation where someone is seeking to head out of town. Am I still able to say, let's see if we can contact the abortion fund, or now that Planned Parenthood doesn't exist, which was a huge loss to us, how could I support someone who's trying to maybe, and I hope I'm not implicating myself, but, if they're trying to get across state lines, what resources do we have left at this point?
Your question, there is a constitutionally protected right to travel and engage in whatever is legal in the state you are traveling to. Just like I can go, weed is legal here now, but I could go to Colorado, get high as a kite, and come home, and that would not be an issue because it's legal there. So no, you are not implicating yourself, and that is exactly what the Louisiana Abortion Fund is here for. I also want to clarify, Planned Parenthood actually could never perform abortion in the state of Louisiana. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, to travel. Yeah, no, make sure. Makes sense. It's just a fun fact I like to share, because people don't necessarily know that Planned Parenthood can't provide abortion care in all of the states it operates in. But that aside, the Louisiana Abortion Fund, an abortion fund in general, helps lower the logistical, geographic, and financial barriers to care. And there's a whole network of them across the country. And so you can call the abortion fund that is both your home state, services your home state, but then oftentimes you can call the one for the state you're traveling to get the care that you need. So for example, there's some in Virginia, there's some in DC, there's some in Maryland. A lot of people from Louisiana go to Chicago because of, if you follow the Great Migration of Black people, that's where people know people, or they go to California. And so you can call the abortion funds in any of those places and ask for support. That support can be both procedural support, so actually giving the money directly to the provider that will help you, or logistical support, which is called practical support in our world, which helps with things like childcare, wage reimbursement, the gift cards and things that you were thinking of. And so, yes, that's absolutely still legal. It's what we are here to continue to do for folks. And I also appreciate being that person for the people in your circle. So we thank you for being part of this whole ecosystem, for sure.
Hi. So what are some gifts and challenges of organizing here in New Orleans specifically? So gifts and challenges.
Gifts and challenges of organizing reproductive justice
In New Orleans.
This is a gift. like tonight is such a gift. And being in space with folks who are not only like-minded, but in the field and front line, this is a gift. Hearing from community members and having that trust, I take so much pride in. That is a gift. Being able to provide resources like gift cards for folks to get a procedure done is a gift. We spoke a lot about challenges, but I really want to spend time to really, really amplify the fact that there's so much beauty in being a safe space for folks and now having the funding to even document that and share that with folks as well, because it really adds so much like a humanistic perspective to what's really going on, as opposed to like an update from like CNN News about a current whatever like legislative update. Like, oh no, like I'm really thankful for the Louisiana Abortion Fund for helping me out so I could bring my partner, because I'm living with an autoimmune disease and mobility is really challenging for me. So after having a procedure in Chicago, my partner was able to help me put on a pad, right? And those are not stories you hear when you are even scrolling on TikTok, and people be like trauma dumping there all the time, but like you just don't hear that. And again, having the space where folks can thank us or even critique us and be like, hey, y'all took way too long to reimburse me, or y'all gave me $40. I was in Chicago. I blew through that on food in like 2 hours. So now we know, okay, like let's try to like get some more funding for procedural support. But to answer your question, I'd say the gift is really just being in space with community and also serving the community.
I'm going to start with the challenge. I feel like funding, because this is a podcast recording for y'all listening, open your purse. I definitely think that people are giving up on the South as a region. People are like, we need to go to access states. We need to go to places where abortion is winnable on whatever. And so, yeah, we need more money. We need more consistent money. And people think that $25 a month doesn't do enough, but it really does. If enough people do $25 a month, you now have a program. You now have several people serviced that previously were going to have to figure it out on their own. And then I think the beauty of the South in general is just how people activate for one another. Even looking at the SNAP benefits being cut and the reaction to that, I feel like it happens with all reproductive justice stuff as well, is like the whole community is like, hold on, let me look out for the people that I care about, which is us. And so, yeah, just even like being on social media, and this city is actually not that big. For some reason in my head, I like always think it's like 1 million people, but it's not. It's like 300,000 people. And to have not one, not a handful, but like hundreds of organizations collecting non-perishables, giving out free meals, coordinating community fridges, like instantly. It wasn't a, let's see if it happens. It's been, since the word hit the streets, it's been happening. And so I think that's like a beauty of Southern ways of being, is that like food, family, fun, football, all of the things that we care about, but like each other is like a central component in all of those priorities.
I love that question. Did anyone else already have their hand up? No. Well, I have a question for y'all.
I would love to know if you could speak a little bit to the intersection of criminalizing abortion and the mass incarceration crisis that we are already in.
Every time I get the mic, I'm like, I don't speak that loud enough. I hope I'm loud enough for the recording, but okay, cool. So the intersection between abortion criminalization, it's just another way for them to widen the net that is scooping our people up into mass incarceration. That's what all of these various laws are. That's what cutting people's wages is. That's what, like, all of it is just increasing the opportunity for you to get initiated into the criminal injustice system, because once you are initiated, it's oftentimes a snowball effect. And so Louisiana is the most criminalized state in the most criminalized country on the planet. And so yeah, they're very creative on the ways that they are catching our people. They're sweeping them up. It is not really an option for a lot of folks to get around, to circumvent the mass incarceration crisis. It's just the degrees of separation are very, very small. So I think that abortion criminalization is an attempt to force people to also produce more bodies that will then be incarcerated. I think it's like a self-fulfilling, self-feeding monster in that way.
Yeah. Agreed. And yes, and I have so many thoughts. My heart is beating. I have a lot of thoughts about that. And for folks who don't know, I am currently dissertating, prospectus/dissertating now. And the scope of my focus is actually learning more about the lived experiences of Black men within the reproductive justice field, because I always felt like, I can't curse, so let me not say that. But I always felt like I would come into these spaces and it's like, well, where are the fathers at? Or where are the men at? Is it just not reaching them? Do they not hear? Do they not care? And I'll be real, it didn't start off with me being as gentle as that. It was definitely from a place of resentment. Where are the cishet men? More specifically, where are the Black fathers? And this is not to put one systemic issue from one group to the next and say, oh, the reason why this is happening within Black mothers is because Black fathers are not here. It's more so no. What's going on? Where is this gap? And even in the preliminary steps in my lit review and doing some really, really informal interviews and such, the incarceral system, because it impacts Black men so much, that does impact the family structure. Right? So then when we're speaking about Louisiana, which is a state that doesn't speak about sexual health within the schools, and then we're thinking about Black men who are literally viewed as prey within this, Black bodies in general, but more specifically Black men, and while 85 to 88% of Black women get pregnant by Black men, this is a huge, important reality, and this is a huge piece within this issue that we're speaking about. And again, I'm not saying, hey, put the onus of a systemic issue on another minority group, but it's really let's look at this from a broader perspective, right? We're speaking about intersection of criminalization and abortion care, not accessing it. If your partner doesn't understand what an abortion is, or if you're a partner, it does not understand the implications of having to travel, what does that look like in your decision making? What does that look like with your information seeking? What if you don't have that? Partner support is really interesting to me because in every single interview we've had, it has come up. Right? So every person who traveled for abortion care and agreed to be in our pilot study for our larger study, partner support came up in some capacity. So clearly this is a place that is understudied, but we need to kind of learn a little bit more about. And when you're looking at partner support, then and most of the partners that we are, so of the callers that we're supporting are Black men. Now it's kind of okay, well, let's look at this association. And I know there's a couple webs going on, and I might not have articulated that too clearly, but it impacts us on so many different levels. And I think that we're at this place where we have to think a little broader and we have to think a little differently. And I'm really excited to finish Tulane, but and I'm sorry. Don't cut that. But I'm really excited to learn more and get engaged with other Black men who are victims of this very oppressive system in this state and really region. So thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that intersection. I think you're really getting back to this idea that reproductive justice is this container that's a little wider than I think people think it is, and Ken needs to hold that too. Because I know that I have a lot of resentment towards men, and understandably so, but also how are we inviting them in when it is necessary at this point for us to not see this as a women's issue, but to see this as an everyone's issue, because it does impact our social and economic growth. It does impact our abilities to raise our families more collectively. Yeah, I also graduated Tulane early for a reason. And that perfectly puts me into what our last kind of piece is, which is that we are doing letter writing for incarcerated folks here through Women with a Vision. And so on y'all's way out, I know we're wrapping up this event, on y'all's way out, please write a letter. It can be simple, but just to hopefully brighten someone's day and remind them that people are thinking about them. And so, yeah, as y'all are navigating this criminalization system and working at this intersection, how can we be better supporting people who are within the injustice system, and like potentially as that number grows and when it comes to reproductive health care specifically, is how they are getting into the system?
First and foremost, I think like a narrative shift or a culture shift has to happen where we stop moralizing everybody's actions. I think we need to move away from, even when you think about like incarceration, deserving and non-deserving incarcerated folks, the people who are swept up into the mass incarceration crisis are victims of the same system that is removing our rights to bodily autonomy. It's the same system that is preventing us from living fully actualized lives. And we need to move away from this like sorting of people into good and bad. And I think it's the same kind of logic that gets applied to abortions, where you have a good abortion or a bad abortion. You have like, the person who doesn't like kids and wants to kill, babies or whatever. And then you have the like, but she needed it. She was going to die. It was a mother who was almost to term and like, she really didn't want it, but she had to do it. Like, it doesn't have to go that far to be good and valid and deserving. Like, the same way that people that are incarcerated don't deserve to be locked in cages, period. And I think that we need to move away from this like desire to categorize people as, fully human, fully deserving of compassion and grace and care, and those who are not. And I think, the two movements are like completely intertwined. And I would challenge everyone to like keep that in mind, and to challenge yourself to stop or interrupt that line of thinking when it happens, and especially as more and more of the reaction to inhumane policies become criminalized, because people are going to be pushed to the point of crime as our legislation continues down the road of removing our rights, of, limiting our ability to be humans.
Thank you, Tyler. Simran, can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah.
I think my question was about,
How are we supporting people who are within the incarceration system, especially as people are going to be growing the reason why they're there for reproductive health care?
Thank you so much. I lost my train of thought because I was so impressed with what Tyler said. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I'm really big on, there's like this phrase like, don't reinvent the wheel. And I'm gonna use that with a little bit of nuance. I think that we should put our support and our resources to the community partners who are already doing the work, right? So we have folks who are within the community. I always shout out the Thurman Perry Foundation, Gabrielle Perry, the Mommy Dearest, for example. There are Daughters Beyond Incarceration, Dominique. There are people who have been doing this work, who have been in this system, who have been survivors of this system, who know exactly what they're doing, and they are the ones who need the support, the resources, the finances. They are the ones you should be contacting for advice on how we can amplify this issue, how we can advocate for this legislation, what can we do to further, if we want to do a research study, like how can we support y'all, or what does that partnership look like so that we are prioritizing your organization. But that is my first, and I stand 15,000 toes down on that, because oftentimes you'll see like these institutions getting this, like for example, funding, and then let's say they're interested in like whatever sector of incarceration, and they kind of like go right into it, and without having like that experience, without having that support or having that knowledge or even that community within the space. And then you just kind of see the perpetration of even more like oppression with good intent, right? So again, I really stand heavily in supporting the orgs that are doing the work and supporting the folks who have that lived experience.
And for those who are watching at home, I'm going to put the links to everybody who you just mentioned. I'm going to put the links to y'all's donation page because, like you said, the funds. And yeah, let me look. What time is it? Okay, it's 7:47. Maybe, does anyone have any pressing things they want to ask our panelists? No, you got a pressing thing. Come on.
This is just something I think about a lot as like someone who's like experienced an abortion, the aftercare of abortion, especially in a climate like this. Do you guys like also provide resources for that, or like what do y'all? Can you tell me more about that?
Thank you so much for asking that. I will not shut up about it, so you're gonna probably have to like throw something at me. But again, another like recurring theme that's been in our interviews has been like the aftercare. We want to provide our callers with as much autonomy in the process as possible. There are some folks who are like, don't ever call me again. We want to respect that. So I think we've been extremely cautious with that to a point where a recurring theme was like, hey, we need a little bit more aftercare afterwards, right? Like, I was on my period I was bleeding, for X number of weeks, and I could have benefited from some additional pads. I had the cramping that was really bad, so we could have benefited from X, Y, and Z. So a check-in maybe a week after would be super, super helpful. Of course, our line is always open. We have folks who follow up with us all the time to tell us about their experience, regardless of the study. But I'd say that aftercare has been this like, and Moonlight can also, I don't want to put Moonlight on the spot, I'm so sorry, but we're making these like aftercare kits as well for folks, which has been a really great experience putting together. But that's something that is like top of mind, and hearing you ask that just also reinforces the importance of it. And hearing again our community members kind of share like, hey, a check-in or some additional resources, or knowing how to navigate some pain from cramping, or a primary care doctors, because when I was there, they told me that whatever, is something that we're trying to, sorry? Of course, an abortion doula. That's why we link up with Birthmark Doula. Shouts out to y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming tonight, by the way. But yes, there are so many avenues for that, what that support looks like. And we are actively curating more programming to support what those needs look like. So thank you for asking that.
Yes, and because everyone at home is going to open their purse to us tonight, we are hoping to fund more of like the healing circles and the emotional support. It's been something that we've wanted to do as an organization for many years, is to regather people, because although it is the right choice for anyone who calls and asks, sometimes it's not the easiest choice, and increasingly so because of the hoops people have to jump through for care. So we want to make sure that we are not only treating the physical symptoms, but also making space, holding space for the, emotional side of things as well.
Hey. I love that, because it's like so normal to have feelings about a vulnerable point in your life. And I think that I've had people who I was working with as an abortion doula be like, I feel guilty that I'm feeling upset about this, or I feel like a bad feminist, or I feel like whatever it is. And it's like, you're allowed to grieve your own experience. And I think it's really hard when you Google like a support group about it, and it's like a scary church that wants to tell you that you regret your decision, versus being able to be like, I have grief and I know that was the right thing for me. And those two things can exist at the same time. So the nuances of having a really complicated experience, I think, is something we really need space for. So y'all should all open your wallets. Do we have any final thoughts before we wrap up and all of you write beautiful letters to incarcerated people? Oh, you're ready to write beautiful letters? Okay. Amazing. Well, thank you all so much for being here.